the Alabama Crimson Tide. And let's face it, Dalton, it was kind of a disappointing year for Kalen DeBoer in his first year as Alabama's head coach, replacing the greatest coach of all time in Nick Saban. They went 9-4 last year. That was their most losses in a season since Nick Saban's first year on the job in 2007. Even with a disappointing year in 2024, though, expectations are still sky high for the Crimson Tide in 2025. They should have one of the best defenses in college football, stars at every single position. The offense has one of the brightest stars in the country in Ryan Williams, who's the cover athlete of EA College Football 26. There is a question mark at quarterback, which we'll get into in a little bit, but Dawn, really the biggest strength of this team probably is the defense.
I would agree, right? We had a top 10 player at every position on defense with this team. You look at their defensive line, starting with LT Overton and Tim Keenan. You look at their linebackers with Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson and Nakai Hill-Green. Then you talk about the secondary with Keon Sabb, Bray Hubbard, Damani Jackson, Cam Calhoun, all just a loaded secondary. What you have is a true three-layer defense that could be the best defense in the country if everything goes right for them. I think the offense is going to take some time to transition with the quarterback situation, but their defense is going to give them a chance to win every single week. It might be a different coach now in Kalen DeBoer than Nick Saban. We saw a little bit of struggle last year, but the tradition at Alabama of having a great defense is going to continue in 2025. To me, that's the foundation of their team.
Yeah, listen, Alabama is one of 4 schools in America who had one of my top 10 D-lines, linebacker units, and secondaries. And as Dalton just mentioned there as well, Alabama is the only school in America that had a top 10 player at every single defensive position too. Now, the biggest question mark for Alabama going into next year is their quarterback situation right now. Now, they do have talent in that quarterback room. I don't want to say that right now. They have a couple of former 5-star recruits at quarterback. Jalen Milroe, though, now with the Seattle Seahawks. The favorite to win the job right now, I'll talk about him in just a second, is Ty Simpson, redshirt junior, is a 5-star recruit coming out in 2022. Sat on the bench for 3 years at Alabama. But you also have their redshirt sophomore, Austin Mack, and a true freshman in Keelan Russell. And Keelan Russell was a top 5 overall recruit in the 2025 high school class. Alabama does still have a top 10 quarterback room in college football in my rankings, which is kind of ironic considering we're saying it's the biggest question mark right now. But just the lack of experience at quarterback, Dalton, is probably their biggest question mark.
It is, and you talk about it interesting with Ty Simpson being the incumbent kind of here and the favorite to start, because you have Austin Mack, who came over with Kalen DeBoer from Washington, and you have a 5-star true freshman in Keelan Russell. But Simpson appears to be the favorite. He was the number 2 guy behind Jalen Milroe last year. He's played sparingly over the last 2 years and put up a 75.5 passing grade. Not a lot of high leverage work, but I think what Simpson brings is he's a lot different than Milroe in the sense of he's going to win with timing and accuracy and throwing the ball on time vertically down the field. That's what Kalen DeBoer wants from his quarterbacks. We saw from Michael Penix at Washington. He's more used to having vertical passing quarterbacks, right, who can win from the pocket. I think Simpson can be that. I really like a lot of his throws in the intermediate range. So if they can get the run game going with Jam Miller, get Simpson in some play action situations early in the year. There's not a terrible runway their first 3 games. They do have to play Florida State and Wisconsin, which aren't easy games, but you really want him prepped up for that first conference game against Georgia. Now, what Simpson doesn't bring you is the elite athleticism that Milroe brought you in the design run game, right? He can run a little, he can scramble for a first down if he needs to, but Ty Simpson is going to win from the pocket. That's where Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb's a big factor in this too. I think we need to mention Ryan Grubb being back under DeBoer as the offensive coordinator after a year with the Seattle Seahawks. I do wonder how much that plays a factor in the passing game. I think last year we saw when Alabama's passing game went cold, it's because Jalen Milroe held the football too long and wanted to scramble and improvise. Simpson's not going to do that. He's going to win from the pocket. He's going to win with accuracy.
It's worth mentioning, too, Ty Simpson was the number 2 quarterback coming out of high school, a 5-star recruit. The only one above him was Cade Klubnik, who we all think right now is the best quarterback in America going into next year. It's kind of weird, Dalton, to see a 5-star quarterback be willing to sit on the bench for 3 years at a school. Usually, after 1 or even 2 years on the bench, they transfer out of there, go to a different school. Ty Simpson has bided his time despite being a top 25 high school recruit coming out. So credit to him for doing that. I'm really excited to see if he can live up to that 5-star hype right now.
Well, it certainly helps to have a great offensive coach in Kalen DeBoer and then the just absolute stacked set of weapons weapons that he has, led by that top guy that we all know about.
Yeah, we got to talk about Ryan Williams right now. That's the offensive player spotlight. Should not be a surprise to anyone right here. The number 2 receiver in the country. He's on the cover of EA College Football 26, like I said before. He's the only one who's better than him is Jeremiah Smith, who's also gracing that cover with him. Ryan Williams had 865 receiving yards last year, second to Jeremiah Smith among all true freshmen, and second among all true freshmen over the last 3 years. Ryan Williams is a top 5 recruit coming out of high school. He led all true freshmen with 170 receiving yards after contact, and only Jeremiah Smith had more yards after the catch, more receiving touchdowns, and more yards per route run than Ryan Williams. Elite speed and elite body control at 6 feet tall, 175 pounds. Like I said before, he's our number 2 receiver in the country. He played all of last season. I know you've heard this time and time again, but he played all of last year at 17 years old. He'll be 18 years old for all of his sophomore year, 19 years old for all of his junior year, and he'll be 20 years old for all of his rookie year in the NFL. And Don, you even said that before, you see a lot of CeeDee Lamb in this game.
I do. The speed, the body control, the hands, the ability to win after the catch. I think he's going to have a lot more versatile role this year, and he's going to really, I think, enjoy catching passes from Ty Simpson, especially earlier in the play when the ball's getting thrown on time and in rhythm and in time for him to make plays after the catch. I think he's going to have a spectacular season.
So we said before, we have a top 10 player at every single defensive position for Alabama. So we had no shortage of players to choose from here, Don, but who are we going to spotlight for their defensive players?
I think for me, it's going to be LT Overton, the edge defender, because I think the one thing I'm not 100% sure of with this Alabama defense is this pass rush. Now, he is by far their best pass rusher. We'll see where the depth comes from, and he had a top 30 pass rush win rate last year. And Max, speaking of things we've heard before, talk about a guy spending his first 2 years at Texas A&M and then going to another school and finding some pass rush juice, right? That's what LT Overton did last year. If he can take another step and really be a superstar pass rusher, 2 things are going to happen. 1, Bama's going to have a top 3 to 5 defense in the country, and 2, he's going to find himself in next year's draft as a first-round pick, right? So he's a great run defender. Him and Tim Keenan are a brick wall in run defense up front, but Overton has to be their best pass rusher, and then the depth guys can fill in behind that. I think he can do that with a second year in this system. I think Overton really is. I could argue, they have a great unit in the secondary. They have a great unit at linebacker, but I could argue Overton's their most important player, if on defense at least, if they want to win a national championship.
Absolutely. Him and Tim Keenan form one of the best defensive lines in the country. My number 2 defensive line in America, only behind Clemson going into next year. All right, Dalton, bottom line time right now. What are you expecting out of Alabama? And let's also mention before, their win total by FanDuel Sportsbook is 9.5 right now. Are you taking the over or the under for Alabama?
I'm buying. I'm going over. I think they have enough talent where the playoffs should be the minimum here for this team. They were the first team that missed out last season. They had a boatload of talent last year and lost a couple of games they shouldn't have, obviously, to Vandy and Oklahoma especially, but they need to take care of business in those games as long as they figure out this quarterback situation, and likely Ty Simpson, if he is at least solid and he's throwing the ball on time for DeBoer and Grubb on the offensive side, I think the playoffs are the minimum, and I honestly expect them to compete for the SEC title.
I absolutely agree with that, too. I'm also taking the over for Alabama. Look at their schedule right now. They are at Georgia, like Dalton said, for their first game in the SEC. But other than that, they are pretty clearly better than almost everyone else in the schedule. LSU game's going to be tough. South Carolina is going to be tough as well at South Carolina. But LSU, you got at home. I'm taking the over. I think at worst 10-2. I just don't see this team going 9-3. In fact, Dalton, I would say right now, I think Alabama is the 4th best team in America right now. And I would say there are, in that inner circle that can compete for a national title, if Ty Simpson lives up to the hype as a former 5-star recruit, and he's a very experienced, or at least been there for a long time at Alabama, I really think with that elite defense and a great supporting cast and offense with a great receiving core, the number 1 offensive line in the country in my opinion too, and a pretty good running back unit, if Ty Simpson can live up to that 5-star hype, Alabama can absolutely return to being a national title contender, and I'm also taking the over on the 9.5 win total for the Crimson Tide going into next year.